So my name is Kristen, and I've been with Minding Your Mind for about 8 years. And I've been speaking with the Duck Cup for about 5. And I've been to Minnesota and Iowa, it feels like a bazillion times. And every single time I go, I mean, it's truly a magical experience. Now, there is one presentation that hits really close to home for me that whenever I think about Minnesota, it's this presentation. So a couple years ago, I was maybe like 15 presentations deep. It was the last one. I had a flight right after. And it was in this beautiful school. I mean, they had like the lights and like the lower and the upper deck. I mean, it was like a whole situation that they had going on there. And it was a beautiful stage and a beautiful setup. And I believe at the time it was high school students. And I speak, I share my story. It's beautiful and wonderful. It went really well. And as I start walking off stage and I see all the kids leaving, I see a handful of students do a little U-turn. And they do that U-turn and they start waiting in line. There were about 35 students that wanted to talk to me, that wanted to say thank you, that wanted to cry, that wanted to vent, that wanted to ask questions. How do I help my friend? I've started self-harming. I don't know what to do. What is the difference between using substances recreationally and full-blown drug abuse? And I stood with every one of those students and talked to them. Simultaneously, Angela is right behind me. And each kid that comes up to me, I like whisper their name because like I want to get their name down because I want to like make sure that they get connected with their counselor. And we had this whole list of students that we were going to, that we referred. And we got them help. We got them support. We got them connected. And that is like one out of like a million presentations that have been done alongside the Duck Cup. It is an honor to be able to speak alongside them and to be able to partner with them. I mean, anytime I've been asked, like, do you want to speak? Do you want to be with the Duck Cup? My answer is always yes, because I know about the impact and I know that they care. If there's one thing that I remind myself constantly, whether I'm in Minnesota, Iowa, talking to middle school students, talking to high school students, talking to teams, I always remind myself, as long as we help one person, as long as we support one person, our job is done. We could do 15 presentations, and if it was just one, it was worth it. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that we help so many people. And the Duck Cup helps so many people get help. I'm so grateful.
Hey everybody, my name's Andrew. I'm going to be answering a few questions for the Duck Cup. So what is your favorite part about partnering with the Duck Cup Memorial? I would say Duck Cup does an excellent job with schedules and making sure that us visiting speakers have everything we need to keep our visit as smooth as possible. I also know personally how hard it is to get into schools talking about mental health. There's a whole bunch of fear and stigma and red tape with administration and principals. And just the fact that they're in so many schools means that what they're doing is working, and it's really hard work. So if you impact one student in those schools, then it means the world. What has your experience been in Minnesota, Iowa schools? Very welcoming and kind people. People that are salt of the earth, sometimes really remote areas, which is different being from the Philadelphia East Coast area. And I think sometimes these conversations are even more needed in those areas where there might be less resources around mental health and suicide prevention. So really cool being out there. What are some of the common questions you hear at schools throughout Minnesota, Iowa? And I'm going to combine schools into one, since middle school, high school, community group, really the questions are very similar, including down to 5th, 6th grade students. These kids understand and know it. So here are a few of the top 3 questions that I get. So number 1, what can I do if my parents or trusted adults don't recognize that mental health is a real thing? Hear it all the time. Number 2, what do you do if a friend might be going through something and you tell them to reach out to help, but they refuse to go talk to someone? What can I do? And then 3, what is the difference between mental health, a mental health issue, and being sad or upset. And we hear these across the board from many groups, just really good questions. What has been or what have been the most impactful moments you can share while being in schools with Duck Cup Memorial? So a few years back, I had an app on my phone where kids could submit questions anonymously, and it was right after a big week, after every talk during a big week in Duck Cup in Minnesota. And one of the responses was just pretty powerful, and one that I think just shows, you might impact just one person. And it was just a message. And sometimes the thank yous are, mean a lot. And it just said, and I'm reading this, I've been going through a lot and I'm in a really low place. Didn't know what to do. You helped me today. I know I'm not alone. Thank you. So that was from a student. And I think it kind of speaks for itself. Really cool feedback. How do you describe what we do in schools and the impact you see? Prevention's really hard work. It's very difficult to track. Mental health, education, suicide prevention, but the feedback that we receive from students, families, staff proves that it's working. And really, Duck Cup and the mission is to plant seeds and shed light on a topic that impacts many people and allows students to know that they're not alone, that is not a weakness to need help, and that it does get better, that there's a lot of hope. Hope is really important. And then can you finish with one of your favorite sayings or things you remind yourself when you are struggling? So I guess kind of like my mantra, and I was told this, is keep on keeping on. And even if you don't see something getting better and you have to take 1 minute or 1 second at a time, keep plugging, because there truly are better days ahead. And you deserve peace, and peace is out there. So thanks for this opportunity. I hope this helps. Keep on keeping on.
My name is Mallory Got Health, and I am one of the young adult speakers with Minding Your Mind who has had the absolute honor of traveling out to Minnesota and partnering with the Duck Cup Memorial. I've been joking that New Prague has become a second home for me, but it's because I love going out to Minnesota and partnering with the Duck Cup. And I think my favorite part is the people I get to work with. I think there's something so special about the Duck Cup because in a world that is constantly go, go, go and a focus on what I'm doing, the Duck Cup is really showing their commitment to caring for their community, their commitment to talking about mental health and having those hard conversations. And you see that in every person who works within the organization. Their fire and passion reminds me why I love mental health advocacy so much. And because they are so passionate, I think that's why schools are really welcoming us in with open arms. I think these conversations are hard to have, and I think it can be nerve-wracking opening up these conversations in your school. But because the Duck Cup has really made themselves an integral part of the community, people are trusting us with their students. People are trusting us to have these hard conversations. And I think every time I walk into a school in Minnesota, I feel like they're so prepared. They want to have these conversations and they're ready to open up their offices to their students and say, come on in, we want to talk to you. And I think that's really, really special. When we go into schools, we give about a 40-minute presentation followed by a Q&A. And I think that sounds really simple. But I think what's so impactful is that for 40 minutes, myself or another young adult speaker is really being vulnerable. We're baring our souls and talking about the most difficult parts of our lives and showing how we got to where we are today, still alive, still here, still living full and meaningful lives. And I think because we do that, we open the door to having real and honest discussion. And I think you see that when we open it up for Q&A. Yes, I get asked plenty of fun and silly questions about who I am and what I love and why am I a Baltimore Ravens fan. But I think there's more there. And I think in the questions that I receive, I can tell how much these kids are yearning for this information. They're yearning to be seen and understood. They're struggling and they want to know that not only is their struggle valid, but that things do get better. When I go into middle schools, one of the questions I feel like I frequently get asked is my struggle bad enough to receive help? These kids are already going through things and they want to know that what they're going through is valid and worthy of help and healing. When I go into high schools, I think the two most common questions I'm asked is, what do I do for a friend that's struggling? Which is a testament to how much everyone cares about the people in their lives, especially their friends who they're seeing every single day. They want to know how to help them. The other question I get asked is, how do I talk to my parents if they don't believe in mental health? And I think this is a really good moment because in the community shows, I'm often asked by parents, how do I help my kid who's struggling? I don't want to do the wrong thing. And I think when you think about those two questions from different ends, everyone wants to help. We care about the people in our lives. We don't want to see them hurt. We don't want to see them struggle. And so I think knowing that those are the questions that are being asked, I think that's an opportunity for us to say, let's open the door to more conversation. Let's give people the chance to talk to one another because they want to. They want to heal. They want to get better. They want to support one another. We just need to give them the space to do so. But I think our impact happens in small ways and large ways. And so I'll tell you the story that really has struck me. I was presenting at a middle school a couple of months ago in Minnesota, and I had an 8th grade student who spent some time with me after the Q&A. And after they had left, I was grabbing a sip of water between presentations, and the school counselor came up to me and said, "The student you just spoke with walked over to us and handed us her razor blade. She didn't want to self-harm today." I talk about self-harm in my presentation. I talk about how it was a coping mechanism that I needed at that time, but there were other ways to heal. There were other ways to cope with what I was going through. And what a huge impact that moment had. Maybe that student will self-harm again, but for that day, they said, this is not something I want to do today. I want to find another way. And I think that's an immediate impact of the work that we do. It happened so quickly between 40-minute presentation and maybe a 5-minute conversation. We led someone to a different path. I think sometimes it can be hard to see the other side when you're in that moment. It can be really hard to see that there's life outside of just that moment where you're really struggling. And I think the more we open these conversations, the more opportunity we're giving for people to see that there is another way and there is a life worth living, even if they're struggling. And I'll leave you with this. There's something that I remind myself of when I struggle, because the truth of the matter is I still struggle with my mental health. Even though I'm in a great place, I still struggle sometimes. And so a reminder that I have for myself is actually something I have tattooed on my wrist. It's a quote that says, "And in that moment, I felt infinite." I didn't choose to struggle with my mental health. I didn't choose to have these challenges. But the power and the agency I do have is that I get to choose to be a part of my recovery. I get to actively engage in it. And when I actively engage in my recovery, I do feel like I have infinite possibilities in this life, not just this one outcome where I'm going to hurt and struggle forever. And so in that moment, I felt infinite is the thing I hold on to. Choosing my recovery made me feel like I had infinite opportunities. And partnering with the Duck Cup makes me feel like we have infinite opportunities to make a huge impact.